The sun dipped low over the quiet streets of our small California town, casting long golden shadows through the towering oaks that lined our neighborhood. It was a place where everyone knew each other's names, where front porches were filled with rocking chairs and the laughter of children playing echoed into the evening air. Here, we, the three of us, grew up, woven into the fabric of a tight-knit family, where love and loyalty weren't just words, but lifelines. Our childhood was painted with moments of joy and struggle, but through it all, the one constant was the unwavering bond between the siblings, and between each of us and our father. My name is Michael, the oldest of the three. I still remember the way my little brother, Jason, used to follow me everywhere, eyes wide with admiration and endless curiosity. My sister, Emily, was the fiery spirit of the trio, strong-willed, fiercely protective, but with a heart so tender it could break anyone's defenses. Together, we were a unit, bound by years of shared secrets, scraped knees, and midnight talks whispered under the blankets. Dad was the cornerstone of our world. A man of few words, he showed his love through actions, a warm meal waiting after a long day, the worn leather belt he used to carry in his hand when we misbehaved, and the gentle, steady hand that always held ours when times got tough. His laugh was rare but infectious, a deep, rumbling sound that filled the room and made even the darkest days seem lighter. He was a mechanic by trade, a fixer of things that seemed broken, but to us, he was the fixer of broken days, the healer of wounds no medicine could touch. I can still picture him after a long shift, sleeves rolled up, the faint scent of oil clinging to his skin, his eyes tired but sparkling when he saw us. It was in those quiet moments, sitting at the dinner table with the hum of the ceiling fan overhead and the smell of Mom's cooking, that we felt safest. Despite the challenges life threw at us, Dad never let us feel the weight of it. He carried the burden silently, never complaining about the long hours or the money that was always tight. We knew he sacrificed everything for us, but as children, the depth of that sacrifice was invisible, taken for granted like the steady ticking of a clock. Our family dinners were more than just meals, they were sacred gatherings. The clatter of plates, the aroma of homemade stew, the teasing jabs and laughter, we held on to those moments fiercely. We would sit around that old oak table, each of us sharing the stories of our day, the small victories and failures, the dreams and disappointments. Jason would often joke around, making us laugh until our sides hurt, while Emily listened intently, her eyes shining with empathy and fierce determination. Growing up, weekends were adventures. Dad would pile us into the old pickup truck, its paint faded and chipped but still reliable, and we'd head out for fishing trips at the nearby lake or take long drives through the rolling hills, windows down, wind whipping through our hair, singing along to classic rock songs on the radio. Those were the days when the world felt endless and full of possibilities. Even as we got older and life pulled us in different directions, college, jobs, families of our own, we made it a point to keep that bond alive. Regular calls, texts filled with inside jokes, and the annual family reunion that felt more like a sacred ritual than a simple get-together. No matter where we were, Dad was the thread that connected us, the heart that kept beating steady in the background. The love between us was unspoken but deeply felt, a safety net woven through years of shared experiences. And through it all, Dad was our quiet hero. It was a chilly Thursday evening when the phone rang. I remember the sudden jolt of unease that shot through me the moment I saw Dad's name flash on the screen. Something about the timing, so unusual, made my heart beat faster, a silent warning I didn't want to hear but couldn't ignore. "Michael, it's Dad," his voice trembled on the other end, barely recognizable. The gravelly tone, usually calm and steady, now cracked under an invisible weight. "I'm at the hospital." My stomach tightened, a knot forming that I couldn't shake. "What happened, Dad? Are you okay?" There was a pause, a shudder in his breath. "They say it's serious. I have liver cancer. Advanced stage." The words hung heavy in the air, slicing through me like a sharp blade. Liver cancer. Advanced stage. The coldness of those words seeped into my bones, freezing every part of me. I barely heard the rest of his explanation, how the doctors had just given him the diagnosis, how the prognosis wasn't good, how the treatments would be difficult. All I could think was that everything we had taken for granted was slipping away. I glanced around the room, my vision blurring. The world felt surreal, as if the walls were closing in and the air thickening, making it hard to breathe. I struggled to hold back the sudden flood of tears, swallowing hard to keep my voice steady. "I'm so sorry, Dad," I managed to say, my throat tight with emotion. "We're coming to see you." I could hear the faint sound of the hospital's antiseptic hum in the background, the distant footsteps and beeping machines painting a grim picture. Dad's voice softened, almost a whisper. "I don't want you to worry, but I wanted you to know." That night, I called Jason and Emily one after the other. Their voices, usually vibrant and full of life, were now fragile, trembling with disbelief and dread. "Did you really hear what Dad said?" Jason's voice cracked. "Cancer, stage 4. How did this happen? Why didn't he tell us sooner?" Emily was silent for a long moment, then her words came out in a broken whisper. "I'm scared, Michael. What if this is the end?" We sat together on a group call, the three of us holding onto each other through the distance, grappling with a nightmare none of us was ready for. Our usual banter was replaced by heavy silences, shared breaths, and the agonizing sound of our own hearts breaking. The pain was visceral. It wasn't just the fear of losing Dad, it was the cruel reality that the man who had been our protector, our safe place, was now the one who needed saving. We felt powerless, three siblings scattered across different cities, bound only by love and the fragile thread of a phone line. As the hours passed, memories flooded my mind, Dad's laugh, his gentle reprimands, the way he always made us feel like everything would be okay. And now, all those memories were tinged with the sharp edge of impending loss. Emily's voice broke through my thoughts. "We hate to do everything we can. We'll get through this, together." And so began the overwhelming weight of hope and despair, of plans hurriedly made to gather money, to fly out, to be by his side. But deep inside, the fear lingered. What if it was already too late? The night stretched on, filled with whispered prayers and tears shed in silence. A family once whole was now facing an uncertain future, caught in the shadow of a diagnosis that threatened to unravel everything. The morning light filtered weakly through the blinds as I sat at the kitchen table, phone in hand, waiting for the others to join the call. The three of us, my sister Emily, my brother Jason, and I, were about to face one of the hardest conversations of our lives. The diagnosis that had shattered our world now demanded action. Dad's cancer was real, and the battle ahead would be as much ours as his. As the video call connected, I saw the tired, worried faces of my siblings staring back at me. Emily's eyes were rimmed with red, a mixture of exhaustion and grief, while Jason's usually confident demeanor was replaced by a hard, determined edge. We all knew what was at stake, even if none of us wanted to say it aloud. "Okay," I started, my voice cracking slightly, "we need to talk about how we're going to handle Dad's treatment. The doctors have been clear, this isn't going to be cheap. Chemotherapy, hospital stays, medications, it'll cost more than any of us expected." Emily swallowed hard. "I've looked into the numbers. It's tens of thousands of dollars, maybe even more if complications arise. I don't know how we'll manage it all." Jason rubbed his temples. "We don't have that kind of money lying around. But we have to find a way. Dad has been there for us all our lives, now it's our turn." The reality hit like a freight train. We weren't just talking about money, we were talking about sacrifice, about how much we were willing to give up, about the very fabric of our lives unraveling as we tried to hold it together for Dad. We spent hours breaking down our finances. Savings accounts, emergency funds, credit limits, potential loans, every option was laid bare on the table, dissected and debated. Emily suggested selling some of her belongings, things she cherished but could live without. Jason considered taking out a second job or asking for overtime, knowing it would mean less time to sleep or unwind. I thought about dipping into my retirement savings, a fund I'd been building for years, a promise to myself for a peaceful future. No one flinched at the sacrifices. There was no room for selfishness, no place for doubt. We were united by love and a fierce determination to fight for Dad, to give him every chance. I remember the nights that followed, Emily sending me spreadsheets at midnight, carefully tracking every dollar. Jason calling me after long shifts, voice heavy with fatigue but never defeated. I canceled plans, tightened my budget, skipping small joys to funnel every extra penny into the fund. It was exhausting. It was heartbreaking. But it was also hopeful. Every dollar raised was a small Victoria lifeline tossed into the storm. "We'll make this work," I said during one late-night call, my voice filled with conviction I didn't fully feel. "We have to. Dad deserves that much." They nodded, eyes shining with unshed tears but also with strength. This wasn't just about money, it was about faith, about hope, about love. Together, we vowed to carry this burden, together, we would fight. The days stretched into weeks, and the financial pressure mounted with every passing moment. Each office made sacrifices that weighed heavily on our daily lives, but the thought of Dad's fight kept us going. Jason took on double shifts at his warehouse job, sacrificing weekends and evenings that used to be his time to relax. I could hear the exhaustion creeping into his voice during our calls, but he refused to complain. "Every hour I work is another hour we can keep Dad in treatment," he told me once. "That's all that matters." Emily, who had been planning to move to a new apartment, put those plans on hold. She trimmed every expense, gave up her weekend getaways, and quietly sold some of her belongings to add to the fund. Her fierce determination was a silent beacon for us all. I too made tough choices, putting off repairs on my car, skipping nights out with friends, and tightening my monthly budget to the bare essentials. The retirement fund I had hoped to rely on in the distant future was now slowly being drained. But none of us thought twice. Our father's health was worth every sacrifice. As the money slowly accumulated, so did our hope. Each deposit into the treatment fund felt like a small victory against the disease threatening our family. We reminded each other daily that our sacrifices were not in vain. "We're giving him a chance," Emily said during one of our calls, voice trembling but filled with conviction. "We have to believe he'll pull through." Jason added, "This isn't just about money. It's about showing Dad he's not alone. That we're here, fighting with him." Though fear lurked in the corners of our minds, hope became our guiding light. We clung to the belief that our combined efforts, love, and sacrifices could make a difference. That together, we could save Dad. And so, with heavy hearts but determined spirits, we pressed on, united, resilient, and hopeful for the fight ahead. The days after Dad's treatment began felt like walking through a fog, thick, heavy, and suffocating. We were separated by miles and walls, yet the emotional distance felt far greater. Each morning, I woke up with a sinking feeling in my chest, an ache that no amount of coffee or distraction could chase away. My first instinct was always to reach for my phone, desperate for any sign, any message, any call that might tell me how Dad was doing. The screen would light up with a text from Emily or Jason, sometimes relaying updates from the hospital staff, sometimes sharing Dad's own words. But no matter how often we connected through voice or video, the cold glow of the screen couldn't replace the warmth of being there, holding his hand, or seeing him smile in person. I remember one particular night, lying awake in the darkness, staring at the ceiling, overwhelmed by helplessness. My mind replayed every detail of the last conversation with Dad, the way his voice had cracked, the pauses that hinted at his pain he tried so hard to hide. I felt tears sting my eyes, hot and bitter, as a heavy wave of guilt washed over me. Was it enough to call him every day? Was it enough to send money for his treatments? Or was I failing him by not being there physically, by not easing his suffering? Emily shared similar feelings. One evening, her voice cracked over the phone as she confessed, "I feel like I'm not doing enough. Every silence from Dad makes my heart pound, wondering if something's wrong. Sometimes, I just sit and stare at my phone, hoping for a message, but fearing what it might say." Jason, usually our rock, admitted in a rare moment of vulnerability, "Work keeps me busy, but my mind's always with Dad. I hate that I can't be there to see him, to comfort him. It feels like I'm watching everything happen through a fogged window, close, but unreachable. Every update about side effects, the nausea that left Dad weak, the exhaustion that dulled his spirit, felt like a personal blow. The idea of him fighting alone in that sterile hospital room, enduring pain without us nearby, tore at our hearts. Yet, amid the swirling storm of anxiety and despair, a fragile ember of hope kept glowing. Whenever Dad's voice came through the line, sometimes tired but determined, we clung to it desperately. His words of thanks, his small jokes to lighten the mood, and his will to keep fighting gave us the strength to push forward. That hope was both a balm and a torment. It gave meaning to our sacrifices but also reminded us of what was at stake, our father's life, hanging by a thread we all fought to hold. Day by day, despite the long distance, our love for Dad never diminished. Every call, every message was like an invisible thread pulling the three of us closer together, strengthening our family bond during the toughest moments. When we heard Dad's voice, though tired and weak, we could still feel his strong will and the love he had for the family. Words of encouragement and old stories shared over the phone became precious medicine for our spirits. Sometimes, Dad's soft laughter would warm our hearts, even if only for a brief moment. We exchanged morning wishes and messages like "Stay strong, Dad," or "We're always here for you," through short chats, simple words that carried great strength. Emily often sent photos of family memories, pictures of Mom and Dad when they were young, or joyful moments from our childhood, so Dad would know that even from afar, the family always remembers and cherishes those values. This love was also shown through small but meaningful gestures. Gifts sent from afar, carefully placed handwritten letters, or simply the frequent presence through the internet made Dad feel less alone in his battle with illness. We knew that even though we couldn't be by his side every minute, that love burned like a never-ending flame. Though worry and fear crept into every moment, our belief in recovery, in the miracles that medicine and love could bring, kept us standing strong. That hope was fragile like a thin thread but became the driving force for each of us to get through every difficult day, continuing to watch over and care for Dad with all our hearts. Sometimes, when the call ended and the screen went dark, those quiet moments made us deeply realize the preciousness of family, the fragility of life, and the responsibility each child carries. We cannot predict the future, but one thing is certain: family is the foundation, the strength to overcome every challenge, no matter how hard. For weeks, we had been living in a haze of worry and hope, trusting every word from the doctors and every update from Dad. We believed what we were told, that he was fighting a ruthless disease, that his strength was fading day by day. Why would we doubt him? Why would we think the man who had been our hero all our lives could deceive us like this? Dad was careful. He never showed the full extent of what was really happening. He maintained a level of secrecy that, at first, we attributed to his desire to protect us from the harshest realities. The hospital visits were real, though brief, and he always sounded tired on the phone, convincing us he was enduring painful treatments. When we asked for proof, he hesitated, citing privacy, embarrassment, or simply asking us to trust him. In truth, he manipulated our concern masterfully. He fed us just enough information to keep us engaged, worried, and contributing. He spun stories about the progression of his illness, about side effects, about appointments. His subtle lies wove a web tight enough to hold us, but fragile enough to hide his real intentions. Then, one ordinary day, everything unraveled. It was Jason who spotted it first. Browsing through social media late at night, something caught his eye, an unfamiliar tag, a video that didn't seem to belong in the story we had been told. There, clear as day, was Dad, laughing, relaxed, sun-kissed and smiling, walking hand in hand with a woman we didn't know. The backdrop was unmistakable, the turquoise waters and soap palms of Hawaii. The caption? "Life is for living." Jason's heart stopped. The video was recent, just weeks after the moment Dad told us he was too weak to travel, too sick for anything beyond the hospital room. Shock turned into disbelief, then into a slow-burning anger. How could he? How could he live this life while we scraped and sacrificed, believing every word of his suffering? The betrayal cut deep, deeper than any illness ever could. Jason immediately called me and Emily, his voice shaking. "You need to see this. It's Dad, in Hawaii, with some woman. We sat in stunned silence as the video played over and over, each frame fueling the storm inside us. The realization that everything we had believed, everything we had fought for, was a lie, was suffocating. Our world had shattered. Without hesitation, Jason uploaded the video to our family group chat. The message was simple but heavy with accusation. This is Dad. This isn't a sick man fighting cancer. This is Dad living it up in Hawaii while we suffer. Within minutes, the chat exploded. Some family members were stunned into silence, struggling to process the betrayal. Others erupted in anger and disbelief. The messages poured in, expressions of hurt, outrage, confusion, and heartbreak. How could he do this to us? All this time, we were pouring money into a lie. I can't believe he'd pretend to be sick while enjoying himself like this. Our mother was devastated, tears spilling through her messages, unable to comprehend the extent of the deception. Cousins and aunts chimed in, some urging caution, others demanding answers and accountability. The chat became a battleground of emotions. Some called for cutting ties immediately, others pleaded for understanding, but the overwhelming feeling was one of profound betrayal. In the middle of the chaos, our aunt, Dad's elder sister, took charge. Furious and heartbroken, she immediately booked a flight to Hawaii, determined to confront Dad face to face. Her words echoed in the chat. He needs to answer for this. We will not let him continue to deceive us. That night, the family was fractured, the trust we once took for granted shattered. The carefully woven veil of lies had been torn away, leaving raw wounds and simmering anger. We were no longer just siblings fighting to save a father, we were now family betrayed, grappling with the painful truth that everything we believed had been a lie. The moment our aunt booked her flight to Hawaii, a surge of tense anticipation swept through the family. She was more than just Dad's sister, she was the voice of authority, the fierce protector who refused to let the betrayal go unanswered. Her determination was unshakable, fueled by anger and a deep sense of justice. She arrived in Honolulu under the blazing sun, the island's serene beauty contrasting sharply with the turmoil she carried within. Every step toward the hotel where Dad was staying was heavy with purpose, each breath tight with frustration. Inside the bustling hotel lobby, she spotted him, Dad, looking carefree and unburdened, far from the frail man we had imagined struggling through chemotherapy. His relaxed smile as he chatted with the woman beside him was like a knife twisting deeper into her heart. The confrontation was inevitable. Without hesitation, she approached him, her voice sharp and cutting through the murmurs of nearby tourists. How could you do this? Pretend to be dying while living like this? Dad's face drained of color, eyes darting nervously as the truth lay bare between them. Words spilled out, defense, denial, excuses, but none could mask the betrayal. The tension escalated quickly, voices rising, attracting a small crowd. The air thickened with anger and disbelief. And then, in a moment charged with raw emotion, she raised her hand and struck him, right there, in the open, on the sunlit sidewalk, her slap echoing like thunder. It was not just a physical blow but a release of years of hurt, anger, and disbelief. Around them, stunned bystanders paused, whispers swirling, but the family's fury was louder than the world. The sound of the slap cut through the warm Hawaiian breeze, startling nearby tourists who froze mid-step, their eyes wide with disbelief. For a moment, time seemed to stand still as the gravity of the moment settled over the small crowd that had gathered. Dad's cheek burned, not just from the sting of the strike, but from the weight of exposed lies crashing down on him. His eyes, once evasive, now reflected a mixture of shock, shame, and the dawning realization that there was no hiding from the truth. Our aunt's chest heaved with rage, her voice trembling as she unleashed years of pent-up fury. How could you betray us like this? How dare you play us for fools, taking our love and money and throwing it away? Tears welled in her eyes, not just from anger but from profound hurt, the kind that only comes from family torn apart by deceit. We stood by you, sacrificed for you, and you chose to lie to us. You made us all suffer for a lie. Dad tried to speak, to explain, but the words faltered, weak against the storm of emotions swirling around him. His silence was louder than any excuse, a tacit admission of the pain he'd caused. The woman at his side looked away, embarrassed and unsure, as if suddenly aware of the devastating impact of their actions. The once joyful scene had turned into a public reckoning. Our aunt's hand dropped slowly, but her gaze never wavered. "This is the last chance for honesty," she said firmly. "If you want any part of this family, you will face the truth. No more lies. No more hiding." As the crowd began to disperse, whispers trailing behind them, the weight of that moment lingered, a fracture in the family's foundation that would take time to heal, if ever. For us siblings, watching from afar, the video and news of this confrontation was both a catharsis and a wound, a painful but necessary breaking point in the journey toward truth and healing. The confrontation in Hawaii marked a turning point, but it was only the beginning of a long and painful journey for our family. The truth, once hidden behind carefully crafted lies, was now laid bare, raw, undeniable, and impossible to ignore. In the days that followed, our family was engulfed in a storm of emotions. Anger burned fiercely in each of us, not just at Dad but at ourselves for being deceived so deeply. The feeling of betrayal cut through our hearts like a sharp blade. We wrestled with disbelief. How could someone we loved and trusted so completely betray us in such a fundamental way? Yet beneath the anger, beneath the wounds and shattered trust, remained the complicated, enduring bond of family. Love did not vanish, it morphed into something fragile and tentative. We struggled to reconcile the man we knew and loved with the choices he had made. The hurt was profound, but so was our yearning for healing. Late into the nights, we talked, sometimes bitterly, sometimes with tears, sometimes with hesitant hope. We shared memories, revisited old moments of joy, and mourned the loss of innocence that came with betrayal. Slowly, the conversation shifted from blame to understanding, as we grappled with the imperfect humanity of those we call family. We realized that trust, once broken, is hard to rebuild. It requires time, honesty, and a willingness to face uncomfortable truths. We recognized the necessity of setting boundaries, of protecting ourselves while still leaving space for forgiveness. Through this painful process, a vital lesson emerged: family is not flawless. It is a complex tapestry woven from love, mistakes, forgiveness, and sometimes, painful truths. We learned that love alone is not always enough to sustain relationships without trust and respect. For us, moving forward meant making difficult choices about communication, about involvement, and about how to protect our own hearts while navigating this new reality. To anyone listening to our story, we offer this reflection: family is precious, but it is also vulnerable. The strength of those bonds depends on honesty and respect. When betrayal shakes those foundations, it is okay to feel anger, grief, and confusion. But it is also possible, though not always easy, to find a path toward healing. If you find yourself in a similar struggle, know that you are not alone. Trust your instincts, lean on those who truly support you, and remember that sometimes, the hardest journeys lead to the deepest growth. As we close this chapter of our story, we invite you to reflect on your own family bonds. What does trust mean to you? How do you navigate pain and forgiveness? And ultimately, what does it take to keep love alive when everything else feels broken? Thank you for listening to our story. We hope it resonates with you and sparks a conversation about the complexities of family, trust, and resilience.